Colleagues, we will just delay for 5 minutes, just for you to take a cup of tea and come in. Good morning, colleagues. Can we settle down so that we can start our meeting? I know some caucuses are meeting at 10, so let's utilize our time efficiently as best as we can. This is the our programming committee of the National Assembly. Agenda has been circulated and documents to all members. Are the requests for additions to the agenda? If not, I will ask anyone to move the adoption. Yes, Kalipi?
Good morning, Speaker. Good morning to colleagues. I'm not moving for the agenda.
Okay,
I just want to check if I heard an item, if it will be accommodated on number 6, because it's about the inductions that is taking place in Parliament.
okay, thank you. We'll do that at 6.1. Mhlakute?
Honorable Speaker, morning and morning to colleagues. With that amendment, I move for the adoption of the agenda as is. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a seconder? Ghana?
Seconded.
Thank you, Honorable Ghana. Can we get apologies?
Madam Speaker, we got an apology of House Chairperson Horn and Mr. Swart. Thank you.
Honorable Kalipi?
Thanks, Speaker. I have an apology of the new Chief Whip of the EFF. He's not going to make it today. And an apology of Member Ntlangwini.
I hope the new chief whip has been sworn in, huh? Okay. Honorable Ngubane?
Yeah, thank you, Honorable Speaker. I have an apology as well from Honorable Duduzile Sambuza as well.
Okay. Honorable Good.
An apology for Honorable Swear, the Parliamentary Councillor to the Deputy President. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With those apologies, we note them, and can we move to the next agenda item on the consideration of our minutes? Mr. Klaas?
Madam Speaker, we've circulated the minutes and they are on the screen at the moment. And
Can we move from page 1 to page 2?
Yeah.
And can we move to page 4? Page 5? And the last page, page 6. Thank you. Members, are there any corrections to the minutes? Everybody was present, their names are noted, I hope. No spelling issue, no grammar. I'm testing whether all of you read these minutes. Okay, thank you very much. Matters arising.
Madam Speaker, thank you so much. The first item on the agenda on matters arising, I take it that the minutes are adopted indeed. The first item is the resolution on party political funding. And I'm going to request Advocate Father Merve to speak to the court outcome on the matter. Then I'll comment on the process going forward. Thank you. With your permission, ma'am.
Thank you, Mr. Klaas. So maybe before we move there, can we adopt our minutes so that it can be signed as a correct record? Honorable Mtuli?
Morning, Madam Speaker and honorable members. I propose that we adopt the minutes.
Thank you. Any seconder? Honorable Tlagute?
I second, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you very much. Minutes have been adopted. Can we now get the update on the political party funding? Just to give a background, members will recall that in our last meeting, we did share with you that the matter of political party funding was going to go back to court, and we were going to then indicate in court how we will deal with that matter as the National Assembly. So we're asking Advocate Adhikari to just give us an update on that court matter. Oh, okay.
Good morning, Speaker, and good morning, members. My name is Charmaine van der Merwe. I'm from the
Okay.
Legal Services Office. If I may be allowed to just speak to
Yes,
the
you can go
judgment.
ahead, Shami.
Thank you, Speaker. Members, on 16 of August 2024, the High Court in this matter, you know what it deals with, you know the background, found that the Electoral Matters Amendment Act, the amendment to the Political Party Funding Act did in fact create a gap in the law. And the court read into the Political Party Funding Act that the upper limit for donations is 15 million per financial year. The disclosure threshold is 100,000 per financial year. These amounts will remain in place until the President regulates on the matter following a new resolution determined by the National Assembly. And also thank Parliament for the explanatory affidavit satisfying the court that Parliament will attend to the matter in a robust and urgent manner. And that of course is a quote from the judgment. So just in short, the court has found that there was a gap. It has made a reading in respect of amounts, and it is anticipating the resolution from the Assembly. And then I think Mr. Kasa will be the one to speak on process going forward. Thank you, Speaker. Thank you, members.
Thank you, Charmaine. Mr. Klassen?
Madam Speaker, we would advise that the portfolio committee be asked to deliberate on the matter, and the deliberations of the committee will then inform the resolution that the NA must pass on the issue. So from this meeting, Speaker will then, if that is agreed, Speaker will then write to the committee to process the matter without delay and advise the House on an appropriate resolution to be passed by the House. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Any comments on that matter from members? Yes, Honorable Laude.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We appreciate the presentation made by the advocate there. If we can get that presentation, Honorable Speaker, it will assist us in understanding what she was talking about. Thanks.
Thank you very much. We will share the presentation as well as the judgment itself so that members can have an appreciation on how the deliberations went. Honorable Mkalipe?
Thanks, Speaker. If I may ask, is any time frame from the court? Because we don't have a presentation and everything. Can you just share some light, because this is a very important matter?
Thank you. Any specific time frame or as urgent as?
Thank you, Speaker. No, the court simply indicated that there is a reading and that will remain in place until the President has made regulations following a resolution. But it did indicate that it appreciates that there is an indication that it will happen on an urgent basis. So there's no time frame, but there is a sense of urgency from the court. Thank you.
Thank you. Let me just indicate, honorable members, that you would recall that on this matter, there are two things that happened. Firstly, the resolution went to the National Assembly where there were figures put into it in terms of what the limits should be to allow the President to then make regulations within that framework. Minister of Home Affairs at the time came back to the committee, a matter which then landed back into the National Assembly, which actually amended or rather reviewed the earlier decision that the Assembly had already made, which then left the resolution giving the President room to make a determination without any specific figure being put. It was from that basis that the National Assembly then amended its own earlier decision. Thereafter, one NGO, My Vote Counts, then took the matter to court, indicating that in their view, the National Assembly erred in their resolution by not giving the president a framework from which he can make the determination of the thresholds with regards to political party funding. One, the threshold of how much parties can receive as a donation on an annual basis, but also the threshold that will bind parties to then disclose who has supported them. That was the issue that went to court. So in the sitting, the court did not finalize the matter. When we came back here on the 7th administration, when we started, the matter was on the court roll. Our view was that we need indeed to relook at this matter as the 7th administration. So we then took a resolution here that indicated how the 7th administration will deal with the matter. And that's what we said to court, that we are going to address this matter best way is possible. So when the court said last week, yes, on the 12th, the court actually, in its decision, agreed with the prayers of my vote count, that indeed Parliament ought to put that determination in terms of the figures in its resolution so that the president can be guided by that framework. Basically, what the court had said is this must be done in this way in order not to leave a vacuum, reinstated what was the old framework. And then the court has also noted and taken a view that we have made this commitment and therefore is instructing Parliament to quicken the process and conclude as urgently as possible in making that decision. So the process going forward will actually, as Honorable, as Mr. Klasse is indicating, it will have to go to the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs, who must then relook at this matter, and they must then bring the matter to the House for the House to take a resolution. That resolution may change the threshold as it is, or may retain the same threshold. So that's the process. Not being a lawyer, Charmaine and Adhikari, if I put it, okay, thumbs up. So I've put it as it is supposed to be. So if you then agree with us, after this meeting, I'll write to the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs to prioritize this matter so that it can come back before the end of this term to the House for the House to make a resolution. Ntuli?
No, thanks, Madam Speaker, with your very important legal background in explaining the matter. So I think now that we have clarified it in that way, I would be comfortable that as the committee, we support that process, because that process on its own is going to be going through the Portfolio Committee and ultimately come back to Parliament. I was confused whether we were required to, what decision we were required to make earlier on. And I think with your clarification, we now understand what we need to do, and that the process is still going to go to another level at which we equally have an opportunity to make an input to drive the conclusion that, in our view, would be in the best interest of Parliament. Thanks.
Thank you. So we are agreed. Honorable Kalipi, are you fine? Okay, thank you very much. Any other matters arising?
Madam Speaker, the next matter is on repeal of apartheid legislation. There was a resolution at the last meeting that the House Chairperson, Frolic, raised this matter with committees. And indeed, the matter was raised with the chairpersons of committees at their workshop on the 7th to 8th of August. And it has been decided that the chairpersons will raise these issues with their committees as part of their program. And it will be ensured that there are regular reports to this committee on progress with regard to repeal of apartheid legislation. So that's where the matter is at the moment.
Honorable Mkhaliphi?
Thanks, Speaker. Can we get an indication about which portfolio committees assist with the matter? So we can be clear.
Okay. Honorable Frolic?
Good morning, honorable members. Honorable Speaker, as Mr. Kaso has reported, it's work in progress at the moment. I've looked at the list that was provided to me and I've asked them to do further work on it so that it can be firmly located. There are certain pieces of legislation that's not so straightforward to allocate to a specific committee because it impacts on more than one department as it is currently configured. So we are working on that, and within the next week or two, we'll be able to provide that list and distribute it to all the chief whips so that they know exactly where it is. It will, Madam Speaker, entail additional work for the researchers and content advisors because they will have to also divide their work in such a manner that the work of the committee that is in front of them continue, but also pay attention to the other work that is there. And at a certain point, they will require legal services to support them when it comes to the interpretation of certain clauses in those pieces of legislation.
Thank you. Can I advise members that we put this matter on the agenda for the next 2 or 3 meetings of the programming committee so that we can get a response? And I would ask Honorable Frolic that maybe working with legal department, we can also source the Law Society's assistance in this matter, because I know at some stage, they also assisted Parliament in dealing with those matters. So can we round it up as in that way, members? Mkhaliphi?
Yes, I agree, Speaker, to put this matter on the agenda in order for us to have a follow-up, because we also have to ensure that our members are also following it up on their respective portfolio committees. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much. Any other?
Madam Speaker, the next item has to do with interpreting services. We were asked to do cost estimates. Part of this has been dealt with in the Chief Whips Forum yesterday, but I will not go into detail, just to indicate that we have circulated the report on interpreting services and the capacity issues that we have. And in summary, that we need for plenaries of the 2 houses, we need at least 44 interpreters in place. Currently, we have 27. And of course, for committees, we provide interpreting services on request. But if we were to have this as a standing arrangement for committees, we would need to have 396 interpreters at least. And then the next slide deals with cost implications for House plenaries, NA and NCOP, and when we have mini plenaries, this is what we have, as I've just indicated. The capacity current is 27, shortfall is 17, and the Secretary to Parliament is attending to this particular one to provide this capacity to have recruitment in place. So we also give a sense of what would happen if there was a decision to provide interpreting services to committees on an ongoing basis. That's the kind of capacity that we would require. It's not in place at the moment, and we're not sure that it should be in place in that manner. So if we were to hire and use freelance interpreters, this is what we do. This is what we would need. But what do we do to augment the capacity at the moment? We outsource the service. So when you have mini plenaries, you have the houses sitting at the same time, at least mini plenaries and NCOP sitting. You could have 4 plenaries going at the same time. So what we do, we outsource the service and get freelance interpreters to assist us. We're exploring various possibilities, including artificial intelligence for real-time interpretation services. But honorable members, this is just to give a summary. The submission has been made. It is available. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. There is the report, members. Deputy Speaker.
Thank you, Speaker, and thank you, Mr. Tkasu. Speaker, could I perhaps request that this whole exercise is done in collaboration with my office, as it is one of my assigned responsibilities, and that I think that it is necessary that we do an in-depth comprehensive study on the latest technology, what we can do in terms of interpreting, what is cost effective and so forth, and that we then come back to this committee with an in-depth report. Thank you.
Okay, I would also add that maybe in that in-depth work, we also engage the universities, language units, because maybe the cost can be managed if you also use student capacity, as well as PenSalp to continue that engagement with them and see where it takes us. So can we again say this is another work in progress matter, which must come back here? But I would allow members to make their reflections. I know they did yesterday, Mbombo.
Honorable Speaker, as MK would like that whatever process you guys are going to take involving universities, we're requesting that when the time comes for or whatever sittings, plenaries, mini plenaries or budget votes, the interpretation must be there, because our people mostly, they want to hear as well on the interpretation and everything. We want to utilize it. I'm saying whatever prolongment that doing now, things will go on some other office, universities. We're asking that when the time comes, the interpretation must be in place.
Thank you very much. We'll try as best as possible to see what can work in the interim, even when we may not have the comprehensive, but we will have interpretation services so long as we go on. I was laughing when we were referring to artificial intelligence, and I'm saying, I hope they would know when I say, "Kwaqobo-qobo into ezophukayo," to interpret it appropriately. But we would look at all other mechanisms. Thank you very much, honorable members. Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand, Kalipi.
Yes, Speaker, I concur with my colleagues here. Because at some point, if we have plenaries or committees for that matter, IAMA, because people are saying, oh, members are complaining that there are no services in place. At some point, I remember a house chair contemplated to defer the house. So this matter is high time to be addressed now. For all languages, Speaker, we must not be told, Guti, let me check with the services, because most of the time you do that when you are saying, where's the interpretation? I want to speak with my own language. I want to express with my own language. The house chairs are very good to say, I'm checking with the services, as if you don't know these services is needed.
Well, thank you very much. I want to really protect the House Chairperson. Indeed, when they say they are going to check, they are correct, because at times when the sitting sits, they may not be able at that moment to know how many languages are going to be having interpretation, but we take note of the concerns that members are raising.
Angazi kuthiwa ungiphazamisa Speaker ngoba
Oh, I
ngaqedi.
thought you had done.
Angakaqedi.
Okay.
So
okay.
ngifuna othi ngikhuluma
Khuluma
isiZulu.
isiZulu.
Ngifuna nokuthi njengoba usekela wakho ethi lo muba
Yeah.
use ofisini lakhe.
Uh-huh.
Akubheke nalento yokuthi kuqashwe izingane ziqashwe iParliament. Hayi lento ukuthi niyohamba niyo outsource. Cha kuqashwe iParliament ukuze sandise amathuba omsebenzi. Kusuye umuntu olikelayo.
Thank you very much. Honorable Kalipi was saying she takes note that this matter will be dealt with by the Office of the Deputy Speaker, working with the parliamentary staff. But she wants to appeal to Parliament that as we deal with this matter, we should not only look at outsourcing, but also look at how we can employ young people as part of our job creation in this instance. So that's one matter that has been highlighted. Thank you, Honorable Nkwankwa, Honorable Frolick, thereafter.
Speaker, for me, thank you ever so much. It's a quality assurance mechanism that we have to put in place. Because if you, let me give you Mhlobwenene. They employ young people to go there. For an example, they are getting them from universities, but they can't speak their language properly. Your Mhlobwenene ends up being like a commercial radio station where they speak a language we don't understand. Nyani, abantu abadala ezilalini, they complain about it because when they follow their radio station, they can't understand it. Imagine if that were to happen here as well. Instead of us being able to preserve and show respect for our respective languages. And if we use this AI thing, it must not be to the detriment of African languages in particular, because I believe that other languages, as Koyo, Apa, English, and Afrikaans, aren't affected by that. And I don't think AI, they can be able to interpret what I say and what other people say when they speak their respective mother tongues. So we must look at those issues and to say, the AI is up in a challenge when we go out to people and say we need to create jobs. Squad rely mainly on technology to get along, to get things done. That might be a challenge. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Frolick.
Honorable Speaker, I think it's just important in the interim while the Deputy Speaker is going to look into the matter, because there is technology, even for the official languages in South Africa. Electronic solution, it exists. But in the interim, Honorable Speaker, may I just request, whenever, and it happened in the 6th Parliament, the 5th Parliament, when you see the speakers list, everybody wants to speak English. They don't even, members should in the interim just indicate that this is the language that I may use apart from the English that is being spoken. And at times it is correct, as you say, Honorable Speaker, is that the capacity in the language services is not there immediately to deal with all the different vernaculars that is being discussed. But I think the Deputy Speaker, when she comes back with a report, will come with the possible solutions to this challenge that we're facing.
Honorable Karipi.
Speaker, I don't know if you are missing a point here. I can indicate as the Speaker of the day, Honorable Chairs of Chairs, that says I'll use English. But the fact of the matter, we are communicating with the country. If I'm speaking in English here in Parliament, but someone at Kobo must hear me through her or his language, that's what we're trying to say all along.
Okay.
Not to say for us as members, but for the country, for the people who have voted us to be here. The last question that I want to ask, Madam Speaker, from Honorable Paso, is we're talking about outsourcing. Do you have permanent English interpreters and Africans here in Parliament? Or are you also going to outsource them as well?
Okay. Let me just clarify on the issues that you and Frolick maybe were reflecting on. I don't think Honorable Frolick misunderstood the question, but what he was saying is that it is important for members to be encouraged to indicate on when they will be speaking, so that the list, the order paper, the speakers list does indicate on the side Zulu Swati in brackets, so that we ensure that in that sitting, we provide for all those languages. It's just to assist. Honorable Dagmore, before Kaso.
Speaker, thanks. Just a quick point. There was an indication in that presentation that there's sometimes 28 committee meetings happening at the same time. And then I think the honorable member from Chief Whip of MK raised an interim arrangement before this investigation. So I wanted to ask, in terms of that 27 practitioners that we have at the moment, is there at least the ability to cover the mini plenaries and then a plenary in all the different languages? Does that, because I just think we need to be realistic about this interim phase. So I wanted to ask, what is possible with that 27 now? I agree on employment of staff to assist and young people, etc. But for now, what is actually possible from Parliament? Can we cover plenaries and the mini plenaries and the plenary with that 27? Can we do that or?
Thank you very much. Mr. Klaso?
Madam Speaker, yes, we do, sometimes with limitations. And when there are limitations, say a staff member is booked off, we outsource that service. So we would interpret from the floor language into English. Sometimes we're not able to run simultaneous interpretation, let's say from English to isiXhosa, English to isiZulu, but from the floor language into English, we do that. But with that 27, we do. We are constrained though, because sometimes the NA and the NCOP sit at the same time, most of the times. But I think the pressure comes mostly when we have mini plenaries. So you have 3 mini plenaries running at the same time physically, and you have the NCOP also at the same time. So you would have 4 sittings, 4 sittings running at the same time. So to answer you, we do. Sometimes there are limitations. Where we are not able to provide this service is in committees. And that is where we just don't have the capacity to provide that service as a standing arrangement in committees. That's why we do it on request at the moment. We don't have the capacity. And I'm not sure that we will ever get to a point in the near future where we have the capacity to run in all committees, both NA and NCOP, in the interpretation. To answer Honorable Kalipi, we've put the slide there that deals with capacity. There are permanent Afrikaans, isiNdebele, isiXhosa, isiZulu, all the languages, permanent staff there. We have indicated where there are shortages. For instance, isiNdebele, there is no staff member at the moment, and we do get, for instance, isiZulu to assist people who are all rounders in languages, they assist there. So we've indicated what is required. We've indicated what we have at the moment. So as you can see, there are limitations there, and that is the capacity we're trying to attend to at the moment. Thanks.
Thank you. Honorable members, I do think that, as members have also said, it is an urgent matter that we need to address. In the interim, we will advise committees that they must make a request if they need interpretation services. But we have taken note of the agency, and the Deputy Speaker will indeed working with the team to make sure that we come back and report as to how far we are going with this matter. Thank you very much. Any other?
No, we just want to indicate the bills that were revived have since been referred to committees. We can now, ma'am, with your permission, move to item number 5.
Okay. Thank you very much. Can we get reports from the committee section and the bills office?
Thank you very much, Speaker. Good morning to you, to members and colleagues. I will be presenting a report on bills before committees. Currently, we have 12 bills before committees, and 11 of those were revived, meaning that they were in the committees in the last parliament. With regards to statutory appointments and petitions, Speaker, that information is being consolidated at the moment, so the focus will only be on bills for this presentation. Thank you. Slide number 4. We have a bill before the Portfolio Committee on Finance, that is the SA Reserve Bank. The committee has dealt with this matter in the last parliament, and at the moment they are waiting for inputs from the budget office as well. So they will consider it again. The next slide is slide number 5. Before PC on Health is the Tobacco Products and Electronic Delivery Systems Control Bill. The committee has dealt with it in the last parliament as well, but for this time around, there will be a briefing that will be done to the committee by the department on the 4th of September 2024. And then the committee will resume with the public hearings in the Northern Cape from the 1st to the 3rd of November, and in KwaZulu-Natal on the 8th to the 10th of November. The next slide, please. Before the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs is the Marriage Bill. The committee has advertised the bill, and the new committee will now be briefed on the 27th of August on this bill. The next slide. Before the same committee is the Immigration Amendment Bill, and the committee was briefed already on the 2nd of August 2024, and they will consider it further once they finalize their program. The next slide. Before the same committee is the Electoral Commission Bill, and the committee will receive a briefing again from the consent member, Dr. Lotrit, and will be informed about the date on which to actually do the presentation to the committee. The next slide is a bill that is before the PC on justice, and that matter needs to be actually resolved because on the 24th of June 2020, there was a letter referred to the committee and that the bill is supposed to be referred to an appropriate bill. So we're just mentioning it here. Thank you. The next bill is before PC on transport, the merchant shipping bill. The committee will consider it on the 10th of November, and then they will actually consolidate its program as well. And then before the PC on Public Service and Administration is the Public Service Commission Bill. The committee will receive briefing on the 4th of September 2024, and they intend to actually finalize that bill in the first term of 2025. The next slide is a bill before the PC on Planning, Monitoring and Evaluation, and that is the National State Enterprises Bill. And the committee will receive its first briefing on the 1st of November 2024, and they will then advertise the bill and schedule it further. The next slide before the same committee is the repeal of South African Airways Bill. The committee will receive its briefing on the 1st of November 2024, and they intend to advertise the bill and process it further. The next slide is a bill before the PC on Communications and Digital Technologies. That is the South African Broadcasting Corporation, SOC Limited Bill. The committee will be receiving a briefing from SABA on the 27th of August. The next slide, before the PC on Public Enterprises, which is the committee that no longer exists. And that particular bill, the repeal of South African Airways Bill, will need to be resolved as well, so that it's sent to an appropriate committee. The next slide is a bill before the PC on transport, the Transport Appeal Tribunal Amendment Bill. The committee will consider the amendments made by the NCOP on the 10th of September 2024 and consider and adopt its report on the same day, which is the 10th of September. Thank you very much, Speaker.
Thank you. Can we get the report from the Bills Office?
Good morning, honorable members. Good morning, honorable Speaker. Our report has been displayed. So Dr. Twalo has already indicated that we only have 12 bills that are before committees. So there's a comprehensive report that she has already given to the committee. So what we're going to add is that there are 2 bills that were assented to by the President on the 16th of August and published on the ATC on the 21st of August. And those bills are the Electricity Regulation Amendment Bill, B23B of 2023, Act 38 of 2024, and the Appropriation Bill, which is B5 of 2024, and it's Act 40 of 2024. So, honorable members, the total number of bills that are with the President at the moment is 20. So with your permission, Honorable Speaker, let me hand over to my colleague, Advocate van der Merwe, to give a report on Constitutional Court judgments. Thank you.
Charmaine, over to you.
Thank you. On the first matter, that is the litigation related to the matter of Wyngaard. As has been reported, the Electoral Commission Amendment Bill is in fact before the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs. That bill deals with the prayers in the Wyngaard matter. The next matter is EB versus ER. The suspension year lapses on 9 October 2025. We've been in contact with the Department of Justice, and they've confirmed that a draft constitutional related matters amendment bill has been developed. It does propose an interim measure to address the judgment. They also cautioned that we need to be aware that the marriage bill that is before the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs may affect this divorce amendment bill, but or rather the constitutional related matters amendment bill insofar as it amends the Divorce Act. But they are planning to advertise the bill very soon, and the plan from the department side is that it will still be introduced in 2024, providing Parliament with sufficient time to finalize the matter before the court's suspensive order lapses. On the second slide, the Traditional and Khoisan Leadership Act, this is the Mohali matter. The suspension of the order lapses 29 May 2025, so time is shortening, but the department has indicated that the bill has in fact been developed. It is in the process of being considered by Cabinet, and the Portfolio Committee of COGTA actually requested that the department come and brief them so that they can be aware of what is the process and where the introduction of this bill, when the introduction of this bill will in fact happen. Members, these are just the progress report on matters where there will be a gap in the law. A full report has also been circulated with all the Constitutional Court cases involved in it. My third slide there, slide number 4, actually deals with the resolution. So members asked for the presentation on what I indicated on matters arising. This is the slide that sets it out all in writing, but we will also provide the judgment, of course. Thank you very much.
Thank you. There is the report from the committee section and Bill's office. Any comments? Honorable Mngu and followed by Honorable Kalipi.
Speaker, my concern with the bills, sometimes when you're outside and you look at the parliament, you think that the people in the parliament, they are not fast or they don't care about the issues, especially when there are gaps in the bill and there are things that are ongoing with the public that left them helpless. I think, Honorable Speaker, we need to look at, like other countries, at the turnaround time of bill amendments. For example, we have to measure, for example, with a certain bill for amendments and anything that needs to happen, we need to take a specific times and look at how we can fast track or make things quicker than what they are currently happening. My concern is mostly, or you see sometimes things of critical importance. They take a year or even more on that. There are no due date that this amendment is having a crucial impact in our society. And things just go on and on and on. And us as Parliament, we all having our cookies, and the public there is being affected by certain bills. So we need to look at the turnaround time of fast tracking this. In other countries, Honorable Speaker, amending bill takes a month. 1 month, there's a problem there. Everyone is on the same page. The solution is like this. You go and you propose, yes, we go on. And then we look at the impact, negative, how we solve it. You know, things are so fast, but I don't know what's happening with our country. Critical things, Honorable Speaker. And the public is left helpless. They're still solving the problem in the parliament. It's still going on there. Years past. So if we can look at that, even if we can compare with those countries that takes a year to amend bill, how do they do it? What process do they follow? And all those stuff that we need to look at.
Thank you, Honorable Kalipi.
Speaker, we have introduced the Reserve Bank Bill 2018, and we have been written a letter to the chairperson of the committee since 2018, and then we've been told that Because we're asking for this bill to be put as a program in the committee since 2018, it's 2024. And nothing is moving. So can we raise this with a proposal that can we move with this bill? Because it's unfair now. We as members of parliament want to do our work, but we'll get stuck in committees. I'm making an example with this reserve bank bill. So the other clarity that I'm seeking is this repeal of South African Airways bill. And we are told by the report that there's no longer, we don't have this committee anymore. I don't know why, because even Jamnandas is no longer here in parliament. But yeah, the clarity that I'm seeking, Speaker, what is the status report about this repealing of the South African Airways bill since the committee is no longer there?
Well, thank you very much. Are there any other comments? If none, just to indicate to members that the issues raised are indeed important on how we do our legislation, the turnaround time from committees, because I think I'm happy that we are doing this oversight because it's our members that sit in those committees. I think we need to relook at how we balance the fast tracking also with the public participation, because you'd recall that some of the legislation have actually been challenged by members of society, and sometimes the courts have agreed with them that there was not enough public participation, you know, on the legislation, which impacts on a number of people, and that we were rushing. So I think when we look at how we, you know, improve our turnaround time, we need to also take that into consideration. The other issue, I will also ask the team to respond on it, but as you know, honorable members, is that at the end of term, bills that were in progress lapse until they are revived. And what the team has been responding is that these bills have been revived. This is where they are now in the committees. But we do take note that some of the legislation have actually seen two terms themselves before they've been finalized. Kaso, I'm not sure whether you can respond to some of those or your team.
Madam Speaker, on the issue of the timelines, I think we propose that, with your permission, we give a report on how long a bill typically takes to be processed within Parliament in the South African context, because there is also the public participation obligation. We accept that there are bills that have taken much longer than ordinarily what they are supposed to take. So we'll present that. Parliament is empowered to set timelines in terms of the joint rules of Parliament for the processing of bills. So we'll also make a proposal on what can be done to set those timelines. The issue of, so we'll make that presentation on how long it takes next week, ma'am. And then the issue of the South African Airways bill, my information is that that bill has actually been referred to the planning committee. And so that report needs to be updated. But what we will advise on is the protection of state information bill, which has since been revived. It was placed with the Justice Committee. It's still before that committee. 2013, the bill was dealt with by an ad hoc committee. The first time it came to Parliament, it went to the President, it came back, and it was placed within Justice. And the idea at the time was to establish the desirability still of the bill. But because the executive has now responded and said, revive these bills, we take it that it is desirable that the bill be processed. So the decision that must be taken is whether Justice continues with that bill or an ad hoc committee be established to process that bill. Again, Madam Speaker, by next week, we'll have clarity on the matter. We'll get the information and provide advice. Thank you.
Okay. Reserve Bank bill.
The Reserve Bank bill is before the committee.
Yeah.
And I take it that members in the committee and perhaps House Chairperson also may be the one who could deal with the matter. But the matter is before the committee. Committees have the power to determine their own programs. But I thought I should just raise that point. Thanks, ma'am.
Thank you. Let me just request may be something that we'll have to write to portfolio committee chairs. I note that in the reports, a number of committees are saying they will receive the briefing and then they will advertise the bill. We all know that December, it's not an active month in our country's calendar. So can we really appeal that those that need to advertise the bills, they do that latest by November, so that you don't have a situation where December we advertise the bill, nobody sees that advert, we then repeat the advertising in the first quarter. I don't think that is helping us to be as efficient as we can be. There are things that I think in our own system, and I think chairperson, House chairperson on committees, we also need to really look at how we do prioritize legislation. What sometimes happens is that committees will prioritize every other thing, study visits and not much on the legislation. And when it comes towards the end of term, we all try to, rush, and that's where mistakes happen. So it might be important that in the planning of committees, proportionate time is given to legislation. And I think a letter from the speaker to the chairpersons may be important in this regard, because our core mandate is lawmaking. Not that oversight and accountability is not important, but lawmaking is so we shouldn't lose sight on that as Parliament. Thank you very much. Can we move to the programming? Before Mr. Klaso goes on the programming, which the document has been discussed also in the Chief Whip's Forum, but there's also a circulation of that document for members. I just wish to indicate that we've received a letter from the Minister of Finance requesting that he presents his medium budget policy statement on the 30th of October. And I've agreed to that. We've also received a request for a debate from Honorable Millennium on the decision by NESA to grant ESCOM's application to retrospectively recover 8 billion for the 2021-2022 financial year. We have agreed to that debate. We believe that that's a matter of national importance, and members will be able to air their views on these matters. So I just thought I needed to inform you of those two, and then we'll ask Mr. Klaso to make the presentation on the program.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Today and tomorrow, committees continue with portfolio-specific induction. And next week on Tuesday, we'll have debate on National Women's Day, member statements first, and then debate on National Women's Day under the topic celebrating 30 years of freedom and women development. We'll also take motions without notice. We will circulate again, for the sake of the members who are new, the procedure for motions without notice. And then we'll take notices of motions as well on the day. And then questions, peace and security. We'll have that session. It's a 3-hour session. And then questions with the president on the 29th. And on the 3rd, the debate that Madam Speaker has made reference to by Honorable Malham. And should there be any legislation, we'll deal with that, but we'll also deal with committee reports in the event that there are committee reports. And then on the 4th of September, questions for oral reply cluster 2. And on the 5th is questions with the Deputy President. And on the 6th of September, we propose that there be 2 mini plenary sessions, and those be virtual. That's a Friday. ANC, DA, MK, and IFP. We haven't got the topics yet, so they will come through the notices of motion that the parties will place before Parliament. And then on the 10th of September, that is what we have on the agenda, possible legislation and motions without notice and any other business that may arise. And then again on the 17th and on the 18th of September. And then on the 19th is debate on Heritage Day. Madam Speaker, we also wish to state that the WIPARI agreed yesterday that the sittings of the NA for this term be hybrid. This is to allow the construction of the dome where we met the last time. And so we will create that space and meet in this venue in hybrid format. We have circulated both the sitting arrangement for the hybrid plenary, taking into account deliberations that have taken place in the Rules Committee about a typical sitting arrangement where the GNU would sit first and then parties in opposition. That has been circulated to the parties. We've also circulated a breakdown. Don't go there yet, just keep it at the sitting arrangement. We've circulated a breakdown in terms of the numbers, because this venue can only accommodate 120 persons. So not all members will be able to be in attendance. And therefore we are requesting parties to indicate, or rather to decide which of their parties would be in attendance for hybrid sittings. If you could then go to the breakdown. So those are the numbers that we have. The ANC 45, DA 25, MK 17, and IFP, EFF 11, IFP 5, and PA 3, FF plus 2, and Action SA 2, and the rest 1 each. The ANC and the DA have had to donate, I believe, to enable the other parties who would otherwise not be able to have a seat to be able to be in this venue. That will be from next week. We will also circulate guidelines for virtual plenaries, but not for hybrid plenaries, to the honorable members so that they know what rules are applicable in those sittings. Lastly, Madam Speaker, we request that ANC, DA, and MK to please forward names for joint committees. I'm informed that those names are still outstanding, so the joint committees are not able to be constituted until we receive all the names of the parties, or at least most of the names, to constitute a quorum for those committees to meet and elect the chairpersons. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Maybe before we go into discussion, there was a matter that Honorable Kalipi wanted to raise on 6.1 on induction. You can, yeah. Or I thought that you can because it arises out of the programming.
Okay, yes, thanks very much, Speaker. Speaker, I have a concern. And this concern emanates from the fact that some of the venues are not conducive. For instance, S35 in COP. Let me make an example with the Portfolio Committee of COCTA. It's a very important committee and it's got a lot of issues to be dealt with. One, time was not enough. Firstly, the committee make a draft program on induction because you'll understand with the volume of the work that the committee needs to process. So the committee ended up with 5 days induction, taking through especially new members on what is COCTA. After that, it was reduced to 2 days from 5. 2 days, other entities ended up not doing their presentation because of time. And we're pressured to say, you must finish by 6 o'clock. And the MISA, the likes of MISA and disaster management, those are the important entities in COCTA, ended up coming for free here in Parliament, all the way from Pretoria because of time, because of transport. Secondly, the issue of the venue. It's not conducive, you can't even stretch your legs. 9 o'clock to 6 p.m., you can't stretch your legs. So I just want to raise this thing here in this platform to understand why Parliament, especially from your office as the Speaker, said you must devise a program of induction. And then at the end of the day, that thing was just a talk show. We're just ticking the box as members of Parliament. And other members raised this thing sharply in the committee, but sometimes if you're a leader, you must just be diplomatic because it gets ugly. When things are raised in front of the department, of which they've got nothing to do with the internal arrangements. But at the end of the day, we couldn't sit as a committee, or the committee couldn't sit on its own because of the transport arrangements. So the purpose of the induction workshop was not achieved. So I don't know if it's any problem from other committees as well. I still need to check with my members who are serving in different committees to say that the induction didn't serve any purpose, Speaker. So that's what I wanted to raise. So can I also raise issues here on the program? Okay.
Is the presentation from Kalipi now finished? I open the discussion on the programming.
Okay.
Honorable Kalipi, followed by Honorable Frolic, and then followed by Honorable Ghana.
Okay. Babu Kaso is saying that he's still going to circulate in terms of motions without notice for the benefit of the new members. Please also the statements, just to refresh our minds, as per political party, how many member statements you can process as well. In the Chiefs Forum, we as EFF raise it that we are against with the proposed hybrid session. Speaker, we are rejecting to this because we have been since day one, even from the last administration, we said as EFF, since we are coming back as a 7th administration in Parliament, let us have a proper planning to accommodate all members of Parliament, because the accountability of executives depends on us as members of Parliament. We do recognize some of the things that were said. What is the reason why we have to go back to hybrid? But it goes back to the poor planning of the Parliament. It can't be since last administration talking about one item to say, let us prepare better for this Parliament. Again, we are going back to hybrid. So the members of the executive, they are going to cruise nicely, because here 11 members of EFF must come here and listen to the president, and president will be cruising nicely nje, to say that, if you can howl to me, it doesn't matter. It's only 11 members out of 39 members. Speaker, we are rejecting to this, and we are appealing to you, look at this issue, because I know as the Speaker of Parliament, you also want to make sure that the executive is accountable. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Ghana.
Thank very much, Madam Speaker. So I do concur with what Honorable Kalip raises around the venues, which it's a concern. The other concern that is happening, and I'm glad that today's session is being streamed. What has happened this week as a result of the other, let's call it, the lack of investment in the technology space, it has led to the committees that have met this week. People outside of Parliament could not follow. So unlike when there are mini plenaries, when people could see the work that we are doing here, like they are seeing now. So anyone who has tuned into the YouTube channel of Parliament right now, they can follow the discussion here. But all the other discussions, or most of the discussions that happened during the week in committees, there was a kind of a blackout for the public to follow what's happening in Parliament. I think what needs to happen as a proposal is that a minimum level, in terms of the streaming of the parliamentary committees, in almost in the same way that the mini plenaries were done, needs to be ensured, because we have a situation as it was experienced this week, that there was no, as I said, the streaming of most of the committees. Part of that is because of the venues. And in some instances, the venues are very small and you are squashed in. And when you have a situation, say for instance, there's also media interest. Now you are squashed there as members of parliament. The media also tries to cover the discussion, and you find that we are creating a bit of a hazard, actually, that we exceed the number of people that needs to be inside the room, and that's something that I think needs to be attended. If the committees are streamed, then maybe you might not have as many media houses that needs to come into the committee room, then squashing each other and members, and there's no space to breathe. So I think that's something that we need to look at urgently, Madam Speaker, before we have another crisis emanating from the committee rooms. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Honorable Frolick.
Well, thank you, Honorable Speaker. Just in terms of the Committee on COCTA, I must indicate that the original application that was received was indeed for 5 days, from Monday to Friday in Pretoria, not in Cape Town. Members of Parliament serve on a number of committees. Committee weeks are conducted in Cape Town, in Parliament, and that was communicated to the chairperson of the committee. The difficulty that we have is, Honorable Speaker, is that very often that there's a disjuncture between the support that committees receive from the committee section and also the flow of information between the chairperson and the secretary of the committee. However, I must add, Honorable Speaker, there's a number of committees that met until late in the evening. One such committee was performance monitoring and evaluation that met until about 10 in the evening, if I'm not mistaken. There's no restriction placed, Honorable Speaker, on when a committee must rise. A committee determines their own program. They determine their own business. And I've said previously, an excuse cannot be used to say transport must leave at 6. Maybe it's convenient to some of the support staff or to others, but committees can meet until late. And the same will apply, Speaker, when we come to the processing of legislation. Committees may also apply to meet outside the allocated date. They must simply apply. We'll consider it and we'll look at the impact on the parliamentary program before we give approval for that. So there should not be any hindrance as far as the committee time is concerned. I'm aware, Honorable Speaker, that a number of committees have decided to utilize this week to engage with certain entities, not all, it's impossible. Trade and industry, for instance, have almost 200 entities that they oversee. So you can't meet with all of them in 1 week. So they have spaced their program next week and in the coming weeks to engage with the other entities that are there. All that is required is better planning from the side of the staff that support the chairpersons of the committees and to convey the information that is there. In terms of the live streaming of meetings and other things, Speaker, in the venues, I must say that the divisional manager for core business can respond to that. But on a previous occasion, I mentioned, even with the restoration project taking place in Parliament now, of the National Assembly building, there still will not be enough committee meetings that is equipped with all of these things that members are raising when that project is completed. So a long-term view medium to long-term view must be taken as to where are we going to get sufficient committee meetings that is properly equipped that can then do all of these things that we expect them to do.
Honorable Julie. Senium Kalib.
No, thanks, Madam Speaker. No, I wanted to comment on the issue about the hybrid sittings. We had a detailed discussion yesterday, Madam Speaker, which essentially emanated from a presentation made by the Secretary to Parliament. You may recall that we took a principal position in the Chief Whips Forum that we should be kept informed and updated on the work that is being done with regard to the refurbishment and the reconstruction of Parliament. And of course, right from the onset, we had insisted that our preferred approach is that all sittings must be in person or physical, as others they would say it, as much as it could be possible, for a variety of reasons, which I don't want to go back and recount. But when we received a presentation yesterday around the preparations towards setting up of the dome and the associated cost, if we were to pursue our earlier decision to go, to remain on a physical or in-person sittings. And when we compare the cost for that, at least between now and the end of this quarter, where the dome setup and establishment would be finalized, we thought that it would be not in the best interest of Parliament, given the associated costs that are related to sitting in person and the venues that were most likely to be available, given the fact that the City Hall, the marquee that we're using there were considered not to be viable options because of unavailability. So I'm raising this point because it's essentially to emphasize that we are still all committed to that position of sittings being in person. But we thought yesterday, the period between now and I think we said is the end of September, should allow us at least to apply some flexibility, recognizing the point which was raised, I think, by Honorable Nkwankwa on many occasions, that we must also balance the money we spend for physical or sittings in person and the money required to speed up the process of the refurbishment of Parliament. So I think the decision we took yesterday, in my view, is not necessarily a betrayal of the commitment we made, but it's a practical decision for the shortest period of time for us to have what would appear to be a semi-permanent venue in the form of the dome. That's what I wanted to clarify, Madam Speaker.
Thank you. Mkhaliphi?
Indeed, Chief Whip of the ANC is a betrayal to your commitment. Everything is opened. Everyone is going to work except parliamentarians. I don't think it's fair to the people who voted for you to be here. Please don't get worked
Order,
up.
can you please make your point? I'm worried, colleagues, about your own time in your caucuses.
No, Speaker, allow us to vent out on behalf of the South Africans. But I want to engage on what the chairs of chairs was clarifying. I think as a way forward, because it's not going to help to be back and forth. I think, please, chairs of chairs, you must workshop your chairpersons of committees. Because truly speaking, he was depending on the secretary of the committee about the information. And I even suggested to him to call you, because as far as I know, no one must get pressured in terms of the committee meetings. And it was unfair yesterday what happened in the COCTA committee. So for me, I think that it's because they are still new, some of the chairpersons. As a result, we are not allowed to do our work as members of Parliament. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Thank you, honorable members. One has taken note of the issues that have been raised, particularly around the venues and how we can manage some of those. And Honorable Frolik is correct. Even when the chairpersons had their induction, which I addressed, chairpersons were largely advised that they need to do a program, particularly not just for this induction, but going forward. There has to be a program on the work of the committees that is also shared with the members of committees so that members themselves can make an input into those programs. And it is really sad that the committee itself decided to limit their time for meeting because there was no instruction from Parliament nor from the committee sections that committees must meet 2 days. This whole week, that's why we don't have a sitting. was dedicated for that induction. So how committee chairpersons have narrowed their time, I don't know. We will follow that one up. Because you still have got a Thursday and a Friday where committees would have been made. I just want to address the issue which has been raised by Honorable Kalipi with respect to the facility for physical sitting. We indicated to this committee that we have had engagement with the Minister of Public Works. Because as you know, the responsibility of facilities of state, including Parliament, that's provided for by the Department of Public Works. So we engaged with the minister, who indeed gave us a commitment that they will assist us with the dome, and that's why we report it here. You would know that that dome worked in 2013 during President Mandela's burial. It was also used during one Makufe event where the the province of Free State had requested the use for the dome. So it has been packed. And unfortunately, when they followed up to make sure that that dome be brought down for it to be erected, they realized that the roof has cracked. So that needed fixing. And unfortunately, the budget for fixing that is Public Works, not Parliament. So they came back to us to say, we do have this predicament which we are resolving. Can you give us time? That's why yesterday the secretary had to brief the chief whips to say, this is where we are. Also, that yesterday's presentation was responding to the issue that was raised in the Rules Committee by other members to say, give us the costing of complete virtual, of hybrid, of a marquee, of a dome. What will that look like in the 2 years before the building is completed? So that's why that report of yesterday had to take you as chief whip, as leaders in your parties, to really have a better understanding of what are the cost implications of all the options. Taking into consideration your decision of a physical meeting. To a point that when we engaged with the minister, we even said, we don't want a dome that has a lot of frills and, you know, like your grandstand and whatever, because that will take too much money for the rebuilding. But we want a facility that can be functional and be able to make us to work. So that decision has not been changed. It's only the timing that would allow Public Works to fix what is broken in the dome, and it will be reconstructed. So there is no betrayal, Honorable Kalipi, of any decision. And it's not the poor planning from the side of Parliament. We have done what is necessary to make sure that indeed we fulfill the obligation that we all would love to have of a physical session by members. So I just thought it's important for me to clarify that. Are we having any announcements?
No, Madam Speaker, there are no announcements, except that on the 12th and 13th of September, we'll have a strategy planning session for the 7th Parliament. The matter was discussed at the Chief Whips Forum, and the parties will be asked to submit names. 100 members will attend the planning session. Then there will be a working group consisting of 30 members. That information will be given to the parties. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. The Honorable Dumseni.
Madam Speaker, I forgot, well, not that I forgot, I was going to deal with it under the announcement. To indicate that Honorable Cameron Dagmore is our programming whip. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Honorable Mbomvu.
Honorable Speaker, with the issue of the bills taking long, I don't know whether is there a way we can track that issue within the agenda item. The reason I'm emphasizing again, things are falling apart outside with the acts that are just hanging, and it looks like we are helpless. I can make one example on the Electoral Act. The by-elections are continuing, and we see horrible things continuing, and it looks like we are as helpless as we can get. And hence, I would like that we prioritize that matter, and even if maybe under the bills, we're keeping it on line number 1 for tracking it on how far it is. The reason I'm saying that is that these things are there, they're just continuing, and no one bothers to care about.
Okay. Mr. Kaso did indicate that next week we will have a presentation on the process that Parliament takes on the bill, which is open for us to engage as members in terms of the proposal. The tracking of the electoral bill can be done, but I'm just saying that on the broader issue that you raised about how can we be agile in the way in which we conclude our legislation. Mr. Kaso said next week they will bring that matter on the table just to share with us from the time the bill arrives in Parliament, what does Parliament do until the bill is out? That will relate to your Section 75 and Section 76 bill. So when we talk about Parliament, it will be how long ideally it takes to the National Assembly and to the NCOP, those that need to go to the NCOP before the bill can be signed. And this is the system we have of 2 houses as a country. And actually, there might even be a little bit of a longer delay following the meeting we had with the House of Traditional Leaders, who are also requesting that on some of the bills that impact on them, particularly like the traditional courts bill, might need to also go to the National House because it directly impacts that constituency. The other element we'll have to contend with is that we had chosen a process that allows for public participation. And as you know, Mbomvu, it may be easier for few people to come and present in Parliament, but the majority of the constituency that we all represent may not have that capability, which is why your hearings have to happen in the various communities. That do take time. So how do you balance between that, allowing participation, and the fast tracking? I think that's the issue we have to grapple with, because it's not the decision that's taken by Parliament's administration. It is the committees which, as members, we serve in. So I think we need to look, when we get the report, we need to then say, what is possible within this process to actually fast track? So that as Parliament, we are conscious of the time frame. That's why I was saying to Honorable Frolik, I will also write to the chairperson. And now, if I were to use my previous experience, I found that committees, and in my committee at the time, they will take more other issues, not that those issues were not important, but very little time on the bills. So when you remind the administration of that committee and the chairperson to say, chairperson, we still have 2 legislations that have not been done. The chairperson says, noted, we'll come back to you, Minister. At that time, it's out of the hands of the executive, but it's here in Parliament. But in the planning, sometimes committees don't prioritize legislation. And when we report here, the committee section and the bill sections, report what is happening in committees. So I think it is important that all of us look at this issue and engage our own members even on those committees to make sure that things don't get dragged in committees and waste a lot of time. So that process, I think it's important that it's tabled here, as Klaso had said, next week, and we all look at what it is and then say, what is possible within this process that we've been using, given the frustrations that all of us are raising about the time it takes to have legislation passed. Thank you very much, members. Congratulations, Mr. Dagno, for your being nominated by your party to be a programming whip. We haven't had any announcement or any resignations and anything. I'm sure we'll get that as time goes on. Thank you very much. It's urgent. I was saying I thought we were going to be advised on any new announcements on resignations and also new, no, I'm saying new. I mean, the situation is very dynamic. Thank you very much, honorable members.